Welcome back for part 3 of section 2.1, Cells and Life. Tonight we will discuss the importance of organic molecules in living organisms. So, let's begin by reminding ourselves that all organisms are made of two main types of molecules, organic and inorganic molecules. We discussed last time that inorganic molecules were molecules that were made of combinations of atoms other than hydrogen and carbon. Organic molecules are the opposite. They are molecules that contain both carbon and hydrogen. The reason why we're going to single out organic molecules to discuss in detail, instead of spending more time on inorganic molecules, is because organic molecules are specifically associated with things that are living, or with the non-living products of living things, like honey or coal. So, for example, when examining the chemicals that rocks or oceans or stars or planets are made of, you'll find that they're primarily made of inorganic molecules. But examine living things, and you'll find that the molecules that give living things structure are organic molecules. There are 4 types of organic molecules that we will investigate: nucleic acids, proteins, lipids, and carbohydrates. Something that distinguishes the chemical behavior of organic molecules from that of inorganic molecules is that many of the organic molecules that make up your body are able to form very large macromolecules. A macromolecule is a large molecule formed by joining together many smaller molecules. A good metaphor for understanding the concept of macromolecules is a necklace. A necklace is made of many smaller beads linked together in a specific way to form something larger and more complex. Can you think of any other metaphors that would be appropriate for describing how macromolecules are formed by joining smaller molecules together? We'll share our ideas in class tomorrow. Okay, our first type of macromolecules are nucleic acids. Nucleic acids play a vital role in the functioning of living organisms because their job is to store coded information. They are like the instruction manuals or recipe books that our cells use to know how to make everything we need to live, grow, and change. There are 2 types of nucleic acids: DNA, which we will study later is used to make RNA, and then, in fact, RNA itself is a nucleic acid. And again, we'll study later that RNA is used to make protein. In the pictures you see here, you can see the structure of one kind of nucleic acid, DNA. I hope you notice just how huge this macromolecule is. Every dot there represents an atom. It is such a large molecule that to be stored inside a cell, it must be wound up in a structure like you see here, and this structure is called a chromosome. The other type of nucleic acid is shown to the right, and again, this is called RNA. So, recall that we discussed how every macromolecule was made up of smaller units linked together, like beads on a necklace. In the case of nucleic acids, the small units that link together to form them are called nucleotides. Many nucleotides can link together to form a nucleic acid. So, if we look here at this picture, here's my pen. Each one of these is a nucleotide, and the chain that they form is a macromolecule called a nucleic acid. Our second type of important organic macromolecule are proteins. Proteins play a variety of roles in the body, including providing structural support. For example, they're the building blocks that you see that are used to build muscle and other structural components like bones, skin, hair, and nails. Proteins also help chemical reactions to happen, which is the job of these proteins you see down here, this one called an enzyme, and this one called a ribosome. They're both molecular machines that help chemical reactions to happen. And then a third function of proteins in the body is to transport molecules. For instance, they form tunnels that can stretch from the outside to the inside of the cell, which can let other molecules pass into and out of the cell. Now, just like nucleic acids are macromolecules built by joining smaller molecules together called nucleotides, proteins are also macromolecules, but they are built by joining together small molecules called amino acids. You can see that here. This whole structure is the protein. Oops. But this protein is made of smaller molecules, magnified here and then further magnified here. And those small units are our amino acids. The third type of important macromolecule are lipids. Lipids are macromolecules made of repeating carbon-hydrogen units, abbreviated here as CH units. And these are joined together. You can see the repeating carbon-hydrogen units here in the molecular structure, forming almost like a tail on the rest of this molecule. Okay, the job of lipids in the body are to store energy, form cell membranes, and provide cushioning and insulation. If you look back again at the molecular structure, let me clear this, you can see that each one of these units are held together by chemical bonds, and these chemical bonds contain energy. Breaking the bond will release the energy for the organism to use, so that so the more carbon-hydrogen bonds a lipid has, the more energy it stores. Another characteristic of lipids that you may be familiar with is that they do not mix with water. Recall how most of the inside of the cell is water, so we actually do need some substances that don't dissolve in water if we want to form a barrier around the cell to keep it contained. The type of barrier is called a cell membrane, which you can see here in red, and again further magnified here. Cell membranes are made out of lipids, which don't dissolve in water, which prevents the whole cell from just breaking apart. Yet another characteristic of lipids that you are familiar with is the fact that they are flavorful and taste yummy. For example, the butter and the oil that we cook with are made from lipids. Finally, the blubber in the polar bear and the fat layers in other organisms are there not only to provide energy, but also to insulate organisms against heat loss. Our final organic macromolecules are carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are macromolecules made up of smaller molecules called sugars, joined together. The job of carbohydrates in cells is to supply energy for cell processes. Just like with lipids, this energy can be found in chemical bonds and can be released quickly through chemical reactions. You can see that in the picture here. All of these lines in the carbohydrate represent chemical bonds, In this picture here, you can see that if the bond between the two atoms is broken, energy will be released. Some carbohydrates you may be familiar with are shown in the middle picture. They include things like glucose, which is a molecule you don't know about yet, but we'll talk a lot about this year. Sucrose, which is table sugar. Starch, like those found in bread and pastas. And cellulose, which form the cell walls in plant cells and helps to give vegetables their texture and crunch. All right, we are done with chapter 2.1. We've got a lot of practice and reinforcement to do with these concepts this week, so make sure you review these notes and don't forget to take the Quizmodo. See you tomorrow.